On the African savanna, prey does not always flee. Sometimes they turn back. Sometimes the entire herd becomes a living wall. Every hunt is a trial of instinct, risk, and timing. The predator must find the weakness. The prey must remain within the safety of the herd. Here, no strategy guarantees an eternal victory. Survival belongs to those who adapt faster, before nature eliminates them from the game. In the wild, when facing a predator, prey typically seeks to escape. But on the African savanna, there is one species that chooses to turn back. Not to flee. But to reclaim their own kind. That is precisely why even lions must hesitate before confronting the African Cape buffalo. The grasslands of East and Southern Africa are places where water sources and grazing pastures are often concentrated in specific zones. This forces herds of buffalo to travel together over vast distances in a desperate search for food and water. A single herd can consist of dozens to hundreds of individuals. In resource-rich regions, many smaller herds can even merge into massive superherds, numbering in the thousands. Living in massive groups does not merely help them exploit the environment more efficiently. It also forges an impenetrable defense system that very few other herbivores possess. Because for the Cape buffalo, true strength does not lie within the individual. It lies in how the entire herd reacts to danger as a unified force. A fully grown adult male can weigh nearly 2,000 pounds, 900 kilograms, roughly equivalent to the weight of a small car. Its horns are not just a weapon. In adult males, the bases of the horns fuse together into a thick, solid bone shield called a boss, completely absorbing the devastating impact during clashes with rival males. But their most remarkable trait lies in their behavior. They constantly monitor one another, and just a single sign of distress can instantly ripple across the entire herd. In mere moments, the collective group can transition into a heavily fortified defensive formation with massive adults standing on the perimeter to fiercely protect the vulnerable calves inside. A lion is powerful enough to take down a solitary buffalo. But they rarely ever choose to confront the entire herd head-on. Instead, a pride of lions will patiently stalk them, waiting for the dark of night harsh weather, or the fleeting moment an individual falls slightly behind the rest. Yet even if they successfully isolate a target, the risk is far from over. The desperate distress call of a cornered buffalo can compel the others to charge back. What began as a swift, calculated hunt can violently devolve into a terrifying standoff between the predators and an advancing wall of impenetrable horns. If that happens, the terrifying advantage shifts in a matter of seconds. An isolated buffalo is ultimately overpowered and pinned down by the pride of lions. But the hunt is not over. Its agonizing bellows quickly capture the attention of the entire herd. Massive adult males lead the charge, aggressively returning to the scene. As the lethal horns are simultaneously lowered, the lions are forced to frantically reassess the risk. A single severe injury could cripple a lion's ability to hunt for weeks, or even permanently. In many cases, the safest choice is absolute retreat. The buffalo aggressively push forward until their kin is completely freed or the deadly threat has vanished. For them, protecting the herd is every bit as vital as protecting themselves. On the African savannah, survival does not belong to the fastest or the strongest. It belongs to the species that adapts faster than its adversary. Because every single survival strategy inevitably gives rise to a new hunting tactic. This is the relentless arms race that has played out across these grasslands for millions of years. The vast plains of East Africa offer lines of sight stretching for hundreds of meters. Across this wide-open expanse, very few predators can approach their prey completely undetected. This immense pressure has forged an evolutionary sprint spanning millennia. prey species evolved the extraordinary ability to detect danger from vast distances. Meanwhile, predators are forced to relentlessly exploit the terrain, the tall grass, and every fleeting opportunity to close the gap before revealing themselves. Merely advancing a few extra meters can drastically alter the odds of a successful kill. To survive, many herbivores have adopted a solution that no solitary individual could ever achieve. Wildebeests rarely travel alone. During the migration, hundreds of thousands of individuals merge into a near continuous flowing mass across the savannah. Every single individual becomes a vital node in a collective early warning system. If just one detects the faint scent of a lion or reacts abnormally, the alarm instantly ripples across the entire herd through a cascade of panicked movements. Their staggering numbers generate another profound advantage. Amidst a chaotic, churning sea of hooves, locking onto a specific isolated target becomes exponentially more difficult for any predator. The impala, however, opts for an entirely different strategy. Rather than relying solely on overwhelming numbers, they combine razor-sharp vision, acute hearing, and explosive erratic directional shifts mid-sprint, making their trajectory virtually impossible for an attacker to predict. Yet every defense mechanism is forged to counter a specific adversary. And that adversary never stops evolving. Both lions and leopards hunt these exact same herbivores. But they solve this deadly equation in two fundamentally different ways. The lion relies on calculated coordination. The lionesses strategically divide their positions, choking off escape routes and aggressively forcing the prey to flee directly into a predetermined ambush. The leopard does the exact opposite. It hunts utterly alone. It does not pursue from a distance. It does not exert pressure on the entire herd. Every ounce of its effort is focused entirely on creeping those final few agonizing meters completely undetected. If the initial gap is too wide, the leopard will typically abandon the hunt rather than squander precious energy on a chase with incredibly low odds of success. Despite their contrasting tactics, both must wait for the absolute perfect moment to strike. An individual severed from the herd almost always faces a catastrophic risk. That is precisely what the lion pride is waiting for. But even after successfully isolating a target, the hunt can still spectacularly fail if the prey viciously fights back or manages to smash its way back into the safety of the mega herd. Elsewhere on the savannah, a leopard continues a painstakingly slow approach. It moves so agonizingly slow that it practically melts into the dry grass. Only when the distance is flawlessly closed does the explosive acceleration begin. But the ordeal is far from over.
Gonna try and get it up the
A carcass left exposed on the ground will rapidly attract heavily armed, opportunistic scavengers. Therefore, the leopard must act swiftly to hoist its hard-earned kill high into the canopy. But whether predator or prey, no single strategy guarantees an eternal victory. Every evolutionary leap by the prey generates immense pressure for the predator to adapt. And every new hunting tactic forces the prey to evolve yet again. This relentless competition has directly sculpted the behaviors, hyper-tuned senses, and complex survival strategies we witness today. No single species ever truly holds absolute dominance. Because the delicate balance of the savannah is not maintained by the triumph of one side. It is sustained by this endless evolutionary arms race, echoing through the generations, as predator and prey ceaselessly force each other to become closer to absolute perfection. On the savannah, not every species survives through fangs, claws, blistering speed, or brute strength. Some species opt for an entirely different weapon. Sheer numbers. And nowhere is this strategy more profoundly demonstrated than in the Great Migration. Every year, nearly 2 million mammals migrate between the Serengeti and the Masai Mara. The vast majority are wildebeests accompanied by hundreds of thousands of zebras and various other antelope species. They can traverse distances of roughly 500 to 620 miles, 800 to 1,000 kilometers, constantly in search of fresh grazing and vital water sources. This is not a journey with a definitive beginning or a clear end. It is an endless cycle driven by the rains, the grass, and the primal instinct to keep moving. Yet the most remarkable moment does not lie in the endless marching. But rather in the simultaneous emergence of an entirely new generation. During the peak calving season, hundreds of thousands of wildebeest calves are born in the span of just a few weeks. This explosive synchronized emergence creates a brilliant survival strategy known as predator swamping. The sheer overwhelming volume of vulnerable calves makes it completely impossible for predators to focus on all of them at once. The sheer overwhelming volume of vulnerable calves makes it completely impossible for predators to focus on all of them at once. Every individual still faces mortal danger. But the generation as a whole secures a drastically higher chance of survival. Here, safety does not come from a flawless escape. It comes from simply not being the only target. Lions, hyenas, cheetahs, and countless other predators aggressively converge around the newborn herds. The calves are weak and struggle to keep pace, but amidst thousands of individuals moving, as one locking onto a single target becomes exponentially more difficult. Sheer numbers create absolute chaos. And that very chaos becomes a natural, impenetrable shield. As the mega herd begins to surge forward, every individual is no longer alone. They become a vital fragment of an immense collective power. The young calves swiftly merge into the endless sea of bodies. They must quickly learn to recognize their mothers amidst thousands of agonizing calls and an ocean of nearly identical bodies. As the herd marches, the choking dust, the deafening thunder of hooves, and the dense overlapping formation make tracking any single individual nearly impossible. No single animal is perfectly protected. But every individual is partially shielded by the relentless motion of the masses. This is not a victory of speed. It is a victory of probability. The Great Migration depends entirely on vast, unbroken corridors connecting grazing lands, water sources, and vital calving grounds. If those ancient routes are severed, the very numbers that once provided a colossal advantage could instantly transform into a catastrophic burden. Millions of animals would be forced to compete within severely constrained spaces with rapidly diminishing water and food. Protecting the migration is not merely about protecting the herds. It is about sustaining an immense ecosystem that stretches across two nations and breathes life into both predator and prey. On the savannah, life cannot evade every loss. But by emerging in such overwhelming numbers, it ensures that the great journey will relentlessly march on. Leaving the vast expanses of the African savannah, our journey continues westward to where the continent meets one of the planet's most formidable oceans. The Atlantic Ocean is a vital bridge of life. An ocean that connects continents, ecosystems, and the very climate of our world. Colossal ocean currents tirelessly transport heat from the tropics northward, while driving frigid waters back to the south. They function as the beating heart and circulatory system of the Earth. But beneath this familiar surface lies an entirely different realm. A world defined by biting ice-howling gales and the most freezing waters on the planet. Here lives one of the most extraordinary birds to have ever existed. The penguin. They are the ultimate icons of the extreme south. Creatures that have transformed the harshest environment on Earth into their absolute home. On land, the penguin may appear clumsy, but beneath the waves, everything changes completely. Their bodies are masterfully engineered for the ocean. Their wings are no longer meant for the sky. They have evolved into incredibly powerful paddles, propelling their bodies through the dense water. A flawlessly streamlined physique allows the emperor penguin to glide through the frigid depths with minimal resistance. Every single wing beat generates massive thrust, granting them breathtaking speed and agility in the deep. But their most remarkable ability is not just their speed. They can dive to depths of over 1,600 feet, plunging into the abyss where sunlight practically ceases to exist. The Southern Ocean offers an abundant bounty of food, but it is by no means an easy place to survive. The penguin's diet consists primarily of krill small fish and squid. Every single day they must leave the safety of their breeding grounds to forge into the vast, unforgiving sea in search of sustenance. Every journey is fraught with mortal risk. Beneath the water lurk apex predators. Above the ice, merciless weather rages. And waiting behind are the vulnerable chicks, desperately starving for a meal. Therefore, the hunt is not merely a search for food. It is a brutal race against time. Amidst the deafening roar of the wind and crashing waves, every individual must still locate its exact mate and specific chick. That is no simple feat. Imagine trying to find a single family member in the middle of a densely packed, roaring stadium. That is precisely what a penguin must execute every single day. They rely on highly unique vocalizations and acoustic signals to recognize one another. Thanks to this, the chicks can successfully pinpoint their parents amidst thousands of nearly identical individuals. In a deeply unforgiving environment like Antarctica, this unbreakable familial bond becomes a profoundly critical survival advantage. Across the frozen Arctic, power does not belong to the many, but to the body of a solitary giant predator. The polar bear. An adult male can weigh up to 1,760 pounds, equivalent to a small car. This enormous body functions like a highly optimized heat-generating machine, perfectly evolved for a permanently frozen environment. But the entire system depends completely on one single foundation: the sea ice covering the Arctic Ocean. The thermal mechanism of this creature does not work because of the white pigment of its fur, as many people mistakenly believe. It is an application of molecular optics. The entire coat covering its body is actually made of transparent hollow tubes. This structure functions like a natural fiber optic network, channeling solar energy through the insulating layer and concentrating it directly onto the black skin beneath to maximize heat absorption. Its olfactory system is so sensitive that it can detect the scent of a seal from more than a mile away. Even when the prey is hidden beneath thick layers of snow, these predators can still locate it through microscopic scent particles drifting in the air. The Arctic food chain leaves no room for luck. This is a survival system driven entirely by energy efficiency and absolute precision. Hidden beneath the freezing water under the ice, the polar bear patiently waits for the moment a seal becomes careless on the surface. Once the target is locked, hundreds of kilograms of muscle erupt instantly, surging onto the ice edge with enough force to kill the prey within seconds. In return, the energy-rich blubber of a single seal can provide enough calories for the bear to survive for approximately another 11 days. As the ice fractures and melts earlier each year, the core hunting platform is being completely disabled. To compensate for the calorie deficit, the system is forced to shift toward alternative food strategies on land. Individual bears must expend enormous amounts of kinetic energy, climbing steep cliffs to reach seabird eggs and chicks. However, the caloric return from this tiny protein source is nowhere near enough to offset the physical expenditure required for the climb. It creates a negative energy equation. The more the machine moves, the closer it comes to collapse. The Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. As a result, sea ice is disappearing at record rates, while the oldest and thickest ice has declined by more than 95% since the 1980s. This physical disruption has extended the physiological fasting cycle of polar bears by an additional 3 weeks compared to measurements recorded in the 1990s. For this species, losing sea ice is not simply the shrinking of its habitat. It is the destruction of its entire energy acquisition system for survival. The Arctic was once a sealed fortress. But as the structure of sea ice declines, a breach has appeared in its natural defense system. Orcas, the ocean's apex hunting machines, have begun expanding their range farther north, pushing directly into the core of the Arctic. In the past, thick sea ice served as the only physical barrier. For adult males possessing dorsal fins reaching 6 feet high, taller than a grown man, swimming beneath dense ice carried the risk of catastrophic mechanical injury. But now, rising temperatures have melted away that physical limitation entirely. The hunting dynamics of this biological machine are not driven by blind instinct. They are controlled by a central nervous system weighing nearly 15 pounds. Their cerebral cortex possesses folds and structural complexity surpassing that of most mammals. This advanced neural architecture allows them to process environmental data in real time and execute coordinated hunting strategies with extraordinary precision. Biological data indicates that these populations operate distinct hunting algorithms unique to each pod. In New Zealand, they use sediment excavation techniques to hunt stingrays. In Argentina, these predators calculate the exact kinetic force of incoming waves to launch themselves onto shore, seize sea lions, and retreat safely using gravity-assisted movement. This behavioral database is not inherited genetically. This behavioral database is not inherited genetically. Science classifies it as a form of animal culture. The increasing presence of orcas in the Arctic is now reshaping the entire ecological balance of the region. Researchers have observed pods penetrating deeper into melting ice zones every year. And by 2013, the first visual evidence confirmed it for the scientific community. A highly calculated orca hunt. They do not attack immediately. Instead, they coordinate as a group to surround, isolate, and exhaust narwhals between narrow openings in the Arctic ice. The arrival of this external apex predator has triggered a cascading phenomenon, a large-scale trophic cascade. Mechanical predation pressure at the top of the ecological pyramid sends shock waves throughout the entire food web below, destabilizing and collapsing interconnected systems. Native Arctic species possess no evolutionary coding capable of dealing with a 6-ton predator, combined with an advanced tactical intelligence system. The Arctic is now witnessing an ecosystem dismantling process beginning from the highest trophic levels downward. A direct consequence of global temperatures breaking the thermodynamic boundaries that once governed nature. The ocean's surface layer, the epipelagic zone. A brightly illuminated realm stretching from the sea surface down to a depth of 656 feet. Within this open water environment, there is nowhere to hide. Speed becomes the absolute law of survival. And this is the kingdom of one of the ocean's greatest travelers, the blue shark. Its body is shaped like a living torpedo. They migrate thousands of miles each year along ocean currents spanning the globe. Even across immense distances, their extraordinary neurological navigation system still guides them precisely back to their origin point, without deviating even a single nautical mile. Nature has equipped these predators with biological weapons far beyond human imagination. The blue shark's sense of smell is so sensitive, it can detect a single drop of blood diluted within millions of gallons of seawater. Its long pectoral fins spread like glider wings, allowing it to maintain cruising speeds of 22 miles per hour, around 35 kilometers per hour. A relentless pursuit machine built for endurance. But while the blue shark represents endurance, the great white shark embodies raw, destructive power. Its bite force can exceed 18,000 newtons. Equivalent to the crushing impact of a nearly 2-ton boulder dropped onto a single point. Throughout its lifetime, this destruction machine produces more than 20,000 teeth, nearly 3 inches long. They continuously fall out and regenerate, ensuring every bite remains razor sharp. Yet the crown of explosive speed belongs to the mako shark. Through a specialized heat exchange vascular system, makos can warm their muscles above the surrounding ocean temperature. When confronting a massive 400-pound swordfish, the mako's lean body transforms instantly into a living missile. It targets and destroys the tail fin first, disabling the prey's mobility. This precision is not dependent on vision alone. Surrounding the snout are thousands of microscopic pores, an electroreception system. They can detect the electromagnetic fields generated by the faint heartbeat of prey buried beneath sand, with sensitivity reaching billionths of a volt. Behind these iconic, blood-stained jaws exists an unexpectedly complex life. At times, the kings of the surface abandon the light entirely and descend into silence. Satellite data has revealed great white sharks diving continuously to depths of 3,937 feet, beyond the final reach of sunlight. These dives may serve for thermal regulation, ambush hunting in inaccessible depths, or simply to silently evade pursuit from tyrannical orcapods. Tens of millions of years of evolution created these perfect predatory machines, balancing the entire food web of the richest marine layer on Earth. Yet cruising speeds of 22 miles per hour and bite forces of 18,000 newtons become meaningless against industrial hooks and enormous trawling nets created by humans. Bodies evolved to slice through water, like torpedoes now bleed helplessly across the decks of fishing vessels. The collapse of these apex predators is not merely the death of a species. It is a biological fracture capable of dragging the entire ocean ecosystem toward collapse. Where sunlight is permanently forgotten, the creatures that inspire the deepest fear sometimes hide within unbelievably small bodies. The cookie-cutter shark. A killing machine, measuring only 16 to 22 inches long. Barely larger than a computer keyboard. The cookie-cutter shark's weapon is perfect visual deception. Its glowing underside acts as camouflage, leaving behind a dark silhouette as bait. When enormous victims such as whales, dolphins, or even the rubber coating of nuclear submarines drift close enough, the shark clamps down, spins violently, carves out a plug of flesh, then vanishes back into darkness. Far deeper below, this living museum reveals even more extraordinary weapons. The goblin shark, 125 million years old. It possesses jaws capable of launching forward from the skull at 10.3 feet per second, faster than a human blink. The frilled shark, 80 million years old. A 6.5-foot predator that hunts like a serpent and carries its young for 42 months. The longest known gestation period of any vertebrate animal. And at depths of 8,530 feet. The ghost shark drifts through darkness. Its glowing green eyes and highly refined Lorenzini electroreceptors rival even those of the great white shark near the surface. Its glowing green eyes and highly refined Lorenzini electroreceptors rival even those of the great white shark near the surface. Yet despite possessing weapons refined across deep time, the entire shark kingdom eventually collides with a fatal physiological boundary. 13,000 feet. The armored limit of abyssal pressure. Without gas-filled swim bladders, sharks rely on enormous livers packed with squalene oil for buoyancy. But under the crushing pressure at these depths, nearly 400 times greater than at Earth's surface, enough to crush titanium submarine hulls, the oil compresses. Buoyancy collapses completely, draining away the energy required for swimming. At the same time, TMAO, the molecular shield protecting proteins from pressure damage, reaches its biological limit. Sharks cannot descend deeper like giant squid. 13,000 feet is the final wall imprisoning them. After surviving 5 mass extinctions across Earth's history, the shark's greatest survival strategy was never violence, but silent patience. The absolute muscular dominance of the megalodon collapsed before the changing planet. Yet these ancient machines continued to endure. For hundreds of millions of years, they were never monsters. They were architects, maintaining the order of marine food webs so coral reefs could continue to survive. Hollywood has long portrayed them as bloodthirsty beasts. But biology reveals a far crueler equation. On average, sharks are responsible for only around 60 attacks on humans each year, with 69 recorded incidents in 2023. In contrast, humans slaughter nearly 100 million sharks annually. Almost 3 lives erased every second. More than 1/3 of all shark species are now being pushed toward extinction. Bottom trawling suffocates these slow-reproducing animals before they even have the chance to breed. Real hope only emerged when the world committed to protecting 30% of the ocean by 2030. These creatures survived 5 mass extinctions through patience. The question now is whether humanity possesses enough patience and compassion to protect these ancient architects. The ocean is a closed energy transmission system, where every creature from the great white shark to the clownfish operates as an essential link. This balance has been shaped by strict laws of physics over millions of years. However, human intervention is pushing this system to the brink of collapse. Carbon emissions are altering temperatures, destroying coral reefs, and melting the Arctic ice, the core foundation of survival for countless species. When the links at the top of the ecological pyramid are dismantled, a widespread chain reaction of destruction will occur. To save it, humanity must immediately and drastically reduce emissions, restore ecological buffer zones, and end relentless exploitation. Protecting the ocean is no longer a choice. It is a prerequisite for the continued existence of humanity.